Our next speaker is Desi Holmes from the Texas Workforce Commission, and she's going to be talking about business and education partnerships, and she will be followed by Kevin Ainsworth.
Good afternoon. How are y'all? You're going to get 2 for the price of 1 with me today. I'm Desi Holmes. I work with Texas Workforce Commission, and my primary function at Texas Workforce Commission is I distribute funding for apprenticeship programs, registered apprenticeship programs. And the recipients of that money are registered training programs, which this is Dudley Light with Department of Labor. And he's going to explain to you a little bit about what registered apprenticeship program is. When apprenticeship comes out of my mouth, I'm talking about registered apprenticeship. And he'll explain that to you. And we partner with ISDs and community colleges to distribute this funding. I work currently with, I don't see anybody in the room that I'm familiar with, like Leander ISD, which is close to here, Carmel ISD. They support registered apprenticeship. They act as the physical agent for that. So, and they use it to support their vocational training in the different occupations that they have. So first I'm going to let Dudley explain to you what registered apprenticeship is in 5 minutes or less. And then I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how we do registered apprenticeship and how it works with career and technology. Dudley?
Thank you, Desi. For those of you who do not understand the difference in a registered apprenticeship and just a typical apprenticeship program, any employer can have an apprenticeship program. Apprenticeship in this country is not mandatory, it's voluntary. The difference in a registered program and an unregistered program is called standards. There is a specific set of standards that registered apprenticeship programs adhere to. We are governed by Title 29, Code of Federal Regulations, Parts 29 and Parts 30. The registered apprenticeship system has been around close to 80 years now, started with the Fitzgerald Act back in the 1930s. It was the first time that the Secretary of Labor was actually assigned the duty of making sure we had a training program outside of the educational system or outside and specifically set of specific standards. So while any employer can say we have an apprenticeship program, and I get phone calls from students who went through apprenticeship programs who want a certificate from us, and we cannot issue a certificate from the Department of Labor unless they are in a registered program. And what they're finding out is when they go to that next employer and they want that certificate and they can't get it, they're pretty upset because they've gone through some training, probably pretty good training, but they didn't adhere to the standards. And it's real simple to get qualified and certified through the Department of Labor. It's a simple process. We've made it very easy today, and we're kind of in that mode of say yes. We're finally in the last year we gave out $175 million in grants to support the registered apprenticeship system. First time in history that's ever happened. They started off with $100 million, and they had so many great grant applications. The Secretary of Labor went back somewhere in the cabinet, back in the back somewhere, out of the H-1B visa money, and came up with another $75 million. We know now there's another $100 million in the hopper for next year. That's kind of news. A lot of people don't know that. We just gave out close to $10 million in grants to 53 different entities, including the state of Texas. That will lead towards probably close to another $1 million grant that'll be coming out in the next few months. So the Department of Labor is finally putting money into the registered apprenticeship system, and it hasn't been able to do that in the past, but they're currently doing that because they're seeing the need. George, you had a great presentation. You took away a lot of my thunder, a lot of stuff we talk about. In this room, you understand the career technical education and where we're falling short. We have gone through generations where we've pushed everybody towards college, and it's probably one of the biggest failures that we have because they're not using their degrees in their field. Technical education training, apprenticeship training, provides training in the specific occupation they're going to work in. In very successful industrial nations throughout the world, 70% of their population goes through apprenticeship programs, not college. Now, I'm not bad-mouthing college. I think it's great. I've sent kids off. I've paid the debt. Neither one of them are working in the field of their degree. That's kind of normal. But there is a big difference in a registered apprenticeship program and an unregistered program. And it basically boils down to the fact that they do not abide by a specific set of standards. I got going too far. Sorry, Desi.
One other thing I wanted to mention about DOL, they have a great website that is for your youth and your students' youth. If you go to Google and do My Next Move, the information that there is astounding about each of the industries. They can choose any industry, look at the training available, look at what kind of job it is, what kind of environment it's in, and what the pay scale, the average pay scale is. So if they want to do some research or you want to do some research yourself, just look at My Next Move. It's a DOL supported website, and the information is phenomenal. And it's easy to find. We handed out a brochure that will give you some very basic information about apprenticeship, gives you some websites. DOL in the state of Texas supports, and it changes daily, 352 programs. And in the brochure it says like a little over 13,000 apprentices. With the funding that I told you about with Texas Workforce Commission, we fund about 5,200 apprentices, which isn't quite half that amount, but I can give you some data on the wages for apprenticeship. When you look at what is your kid, your personal kid, or your students are going to look at as far as income, the average starting wages of the apprentices that we fund, I'm only talking about that 5,200, is $12.84 an hour. That's much above flipping burgers in most areas of the state. That's $26,700 a year. Training for registered apprenticeship goes from 1 to 5 years. Second year average wages, and I'm talking about all the industries that we support, most of which happen to be building trades, is $15.08 an hour. That's $31,300 a year with no debt. The training is almost in most cases free to the individual because they're working full time and they go to school in the evening, or some schools go during the day, 1 day a week. And then their third year, $17.64, which doesn't sound like a lot, but that's $36,700 a year. Fourth year average is $19.92, which is a little over $41,000 a year. And if it goes to the fifth year, the average wage is $22.45, which is almost $47,000 a year. And then as they become a journeyman, they usually get a 20% bump in their pay, and they have no debt. So they're making $50,000 a year by the time a normal college kid gets through their bachelor's degree, with more than that in debt and no job. So an option would be registered apprenticeship. If an individual starts with a registered apprenticeship program, first year their dropout rate is about 40%, but after they make it through their first year, more than 87% of them complete, and that's the wages and the career that they have in front of them. And most of the apprenticeship programs, and I visit quite a few of them, also have entrepreneurial built into their curriculum because they want to build businesses. So they want those people to go out and create their own business and come back for their trainees and their way of doing business. So whatever they want to do, they can ultimately do this. And you think, I said most of ours are building trades, but some of them are very specialized. Some of them work in the oil fields, and talk about the specialized training that they have to have when they do the gases in a hospital. They're plumbers and pipe fitters, but they're putting together the hoses for all the gases and the oxygen and everything that you do in the hospital, and it's very specialized. So even though you say building industry, you can kind of choose the bigger industry that you want to go into: petrochemical, hospital, administration, building owner, business owner. So, and I'll tell you a little bit about me. I'm 60 years old. I came from a school that had an excellent vocational program. We had everything. We had cosmetology, we had auto mechanics, we had building trades, animal husbandry. I mean, there was probably, and we had a huge facility. And I thought when I had kids, I wanted them to go to vocational, to have the opportunity to learn about vocational. The school that I went to did no longer have vocational. So we moved our kids to a smaller town where they would have exposure to information that allows them to make decisions. If you only expose them to one component of what the rest of their life is going to be, that's where they think their decisions lie. Both of my kids came out with multiple certificates for different types of welding. Now I have a son and a daughter. We live on a farm. They knew how to weld. They didn't weld as pretty as they did when they came out of school, but it held. I can weld. It's not as pretty as theirs, but I can weld. I can put a plow back together. And they did building. They were exposed to building trades, plumbing, pipe fitting, carpentry, not particularly millwrights, that kind of plumbing, pipe fitting. But then they also had state-of-the-art meat lab. Both of my kids came out certified butchers. My daughter uses it in her own kitchen. My son actually worked for a full year at Safeway before he quit. In a year, he was the lead butcher, and he was a student making, I guess he's 33 years old. At that time, he was making $22 an hour and going to school. He can still go back to do that. He says he never will. I say never, say never. He owns his own business. And my daughter's a store manager, even though we went to school for a teacher. But it did give her skills, and it gave her choices. And I think, not that my thought is worth 2 cents, but my thought is, in the high school level, if we give them information and expose them to different occupations and different ways to go forward in their life, would be doing a very good job. So they can make choices, so that when they make a bad choice of flipping burgers, they can draw from what y'all exposed them to in high school and say, I know I can go do this and make this much wage. I know I can. Anybody can. So I did bring some cards if you're interested in talking to me any further. And I'm a very large proponent of registered apprenticeship because it gives kids such an opportunity. It's an opportunity for a career, and they can be a member of another family. I visit these programs and see the kids in class and ask them all the time, what brought you here? And some of them went a very long path to finally get there, and some of them went directly there and already are making a life. And some of them tell me, I came here so that I can buy the truck. I want the 4-wheel drive truck. And that's male or female. So they'd rather buy a truck than have college debt. So I did bring some cards. Dudley, you have anything you want to say?
You know, what we're seeing right now, the pendulum always kind of swings back and forth. And we're seeing the registered apprenticeship system on the upswing. The president, a couple of years ago in the State of the Union speech, said he wanted to double the number of apprentices in this country, which would put us close to 1 million apprentices by 2020. And the Department of Labor is putting its money behind it. The state of Texas is putting their money behind it. Desi didn't brag about this, but they increased their funding 50% for this year over what it was last year. So that's a significant increase that the legislature looked at and said, we need to do this. It's the right thing to do. You, as career education trainers, get ready, because what you're doing in the high schools and now is going to only increase in the very near future as we see that skills gap continue to widen. And it's going to be very important that we as a nation move in that direction so we'll have the workforce to take care of this country. We've kind of moved away from the service industry. You know, that doesn't pay very well. So we've moved away from the service industry, and we're seeing a very large increase in manufacturing, production, a lot of different areas that is going to be vital to the security of this country in the future. We've got to build our workforce, and we've got to do it now.
I'd like to take one more second. Am I on? Oh, yeah. Like I said, I do work with one of the programs, and I'd like to brag on them a little bit, Leander ISD. They partner with the Registered Apprenticeship Program, and that Registered Apprenticeship, they don't even take their administrative costs that they would be allowed, because the programs that they support fully stock their electrical program with all the tools and materials. All their employers do that for them, and then their seniors take the first year curriculum of that program, and when they start, and they work part-time or summers for that program, and then when they start at that second level wage, and they did that all in high school. So it can be an excellent partnership for you if you choose to go that way, and me or Dudley, either one, would try to help any of y'all that are interested in doing that or partnering with someone. Not that you have to apply for our funding or whatever. You could do it on your own. But we would still help you if that's what you want to do. Questions? Yes?
So as a district who doesn't do anything with apprenticeship programs at this point, what do I need to know as administrator to get the ball rolling other than, you know, just reaching out to you? What does it look like for us, and how do we get our kids involved, and just, you know, real brief synopsis is how that would work for us.
Well, my first thing would be you need to do something like George says, figure out what your community and your employers want. And then if you're reaching out to those employers, there might even be a registered an employer that's already associated with the Registered Apprenticeship Program. Me and Dudley could try to help you with that. But like George says, you need to start with what you're going to be serving, not in your own mind say, oh, let's try to do this. See what your community is going to support and what they want you to spend their money on. I mean, I've never really thought about it in the detail that George presented today, but that's where you need to start. But we're still here as a resource to help you once you figure that out. Starts with employers.
Do y'all keep a list or something of the registered apprenticeships and what companies do that can be shared, or?
We have a lot of programs that are group programs, so there's multiple employers involved with one sponsor. And because of that, we do not keep a record of every employer that's part of an apprenticeship program. However, if I know the sponsor of what apprenticeship program they're going through, I can give you that information. We got a little over 350 here in Texas. We've already registered 37 new programs. This year alone, we're probably going to register close to an additional 12 to 15. So we'll have about 400 programs by the end of this year. But as far as a real good quality database, that I could tell you that Larry's Paint and Body Shop is part of a program, sorry. Any other questions?